nice. So I went to the doctor recently. Stuck a finger up my butt. Prostate was good.
Wait, for real?
No, I don't think women have prostates.
I was like, there's something.
Well, that's what they told me.
You went to the wrong doctor. Johnny Sins. No.
Oh no. He told me my prostate needed a good looking up. Oh, I was trying to look up the theory of when a hot girl is not asked to prom, and one of the results was BuzzFeed.com. This girl totally ruined her boyfriend's prom proposal.
Ooh.
Gnarly. 1, 2, 3, let's get gnarly. If I had $10 right now, I really wouldn't buy a lot, but at least I'd have $10.
I agree with you. I always feel like if I just had like a quick million, like a small loan of $1 million, I just wouldn't do anything ever.
I used to, I had that question once with one of my exes, and they're like, what would you do with $1 million? And I literally was like, oh, I don't know, buy a house, maybe go travel the world, probably save half for, so I don't have to work while I go to school, and then go to school and pay off my school all the way. And then he was like, oh, that's cool, I think I might expand on my music career. And I was like, gay. Just kidding, I didn't do that. I said I was supportive. I was like, I think that's badass.
Yeah, like you gotta
support to whoever you're dating. But yeah, no, that was my first response was probably buy McChicken. And he was like, no, but really. And I was like, oh, no, but really, what would you do if you got $1 million right now? Realistically, I'd go out to eat.
Yeah, that'd be the first thing for sure.
I would probably go to a very fancy restaurant. There's this one. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. It's in Farmington. Not Farmington. It goes south. Fashion Place Mall. It's called, I think, Brio or Trio.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's so freaking delicious. It's not like super expensive, so it's not like you'll leave spending like $500, but it is pretty expensive. And one time for my birthday, my dad took me there, and we had dinner. And I was like, "Oh, can I get a creme brulee?" And they're like, "Oh, of course." And I didn't tell them it was my birthday because I don't like when people sing to me. And I also didn't want a freaking brownie for dessert. I want a creme brulee like a boss.
Right.
Anyways, long story short, I got the creme brulee, and then they were like, oh, we're so sorry, we didn't fill it fully when we made it, so we gave you another one. So I got 2 fucking creme brulees. I was like, but it's my birthday, bitch. And then afterwards, I was like, thank you so much, it's my birthday. And they're like, oh my god, it's your birthday? And then they charged us for the creme brulee. And then so, long story short, I'd probably go there for if I made $1 million.
I would go to that place in Park City, and I'd look at the nice waiter in his eyes and be like, bring me every Wagyu you have in this place.
Oh, that one
you
took you went for your birthday.
Yeah. And he'd be like, okay, I'll get you some Wagyu, and I'll grab him, and I'll do that thing from that one TV show. And he's like, listen, son, I don't think you heard me. I want all the Wagyu in this building.
All the Wagyu in this building.
Just don't sell another Wagyu to a soul.
This is my Wagyu.
All right, I think we're ready.
I think we're ready to start a roast.
Boom.
And we're back.
And we're back to another episode of True Crime Drunks.
Yes.
The first one that we're doing on our own channel.
Yeah.
I'm super excited because I think that as nice as it was to do everything on one channel, I think we were actually kind of hindering our own growth because people were going for different reasons. So I think now that we're on our own thing, it's going to be a big
change.
A big change and a big boy move.
Big brain energy.
Yeah, but I'm super excited. I'm Wes McBee, and
Holly McGee.
Holly McGee.
Just kidding, it's Holly Lee.
Holly Lee, and today we're gonna cover the most popular, and I say that meaning like not in a positive way, but
I think
some
it's
people,
one of the most notorious serial killers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone who would be like, oh, I don't know who Ted Bundy is.
Yeah, I think most everybody was like, yeah, I know the name.
Yeah, and at least kind of like what he did or who he was. And he, aside, well, I'm sure we'll make lots of jokes about him being attractive and all that type of stuff. I even have a a trending hashtag
Yeah.
that I'll say for later that was going on when Zac Efron decided to portray him in that movie.
Yes,
That was...
we should talk about the movie at the end. I have a lot of things to say.
Yeah, we'll talk about the movie. But he's probably the most attractive serial killer, I think, in most people's eyes, on top of the fact that he was, like every other serial killer, super successful. Super successful.
And super iconic because he is even known to be the inspiration of Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
He's the inspiration for Buffalo Bill.
Which is kind of weird because I don't see any similarities.
It's we'll talk about it more when it's like it's because of his MO of what he would do. So what his tactics was to getting his victims is the same as Buffalo Bill's.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
If you haven't seen Silence of the Lambs, check out our last podcast on Read Between the Lines where we covered it. It was so good.
It's a great episode.
We talked a lot about cannibalism.
You know, sometimes you just gotta eat human.
If it's consensual, it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I forget about that. I think I told my dad that. I was like, you'll never guess what I learned. And he was like, what? And he's like, it can't be legal. And I'm like, it's legal, Dad. We could do it consensually. And he was like, I don't like that.
I spent more time thinking about that conversation than most conversations I've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, put in the situation, do I eat a piece of my friend's leg if presented to me?
If someone lost their leg by natural causes and it was safe to eat, would you eat it? Because unless you live in Idaho, you technically can. Because if it's consensual cannibalism, it's okay.
I still don't know if I would. Like, I like to try everything at least once or twice, you know, try and dabble in it. And like, I think there's a lot of things that depend on this, right?
Right.
He can't make it for me, or she.
No.
Someone else has to prepare that, because that's like some weird fantasy of him over there, like, can't wait for him to put it in my mouth. Like,
can't wait till them eat me.
Yeah, like, so it has to be like really like set up in an elaborate way. And like, I don't know. What if it's good? What if I start craving?
See, that's like my subtle secret fear is that I'll like it too much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I think if I was offered it and someone's like, this is my leg that I just lost, my chef cooked it up, would you like to try it? I'd probably try like a dime size.
Yeah.
Just to know the texture. That's the only thing I want to know is the texture.
I mean, I guess it depends on the person too, because like,
if they were.
If they were like super fit, it's going to be really gamey. If they were kind of lazy, it's going to be like fatty. Like,
you need a happy medium.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd say I would do it, but I think in the moment of opportune, I'd probably be like, no, unless I got drunk, and then at the end of the night, I'd be like, where's those leftover humans?
Yes. You know that leg earlier? Let's do it.
But like, realistically, I don't think I could. I like to think that I would, but I wouldn't.
Listen, and from my experiences of doing stuff in the moment, 80% of the time, it's usually a bad idea.
Yeah, see, that's my thing, is that I'm also that person that's like, oh yeah, no balls, no fear.
Yeah, no balls.
But like, at the same time, I'm like, do I want to have on my record that I ate meat, human meat? I don't think so. So I don't think I would, because I don't think I should.
I mean, okay, if I was sitting right in front of him, I'd call it, do it for the vine.
I wouldn't want to be recorded. That would make it worse. My reputation would be lost.
I would do it more if I was recorded.
I would be wanting no. Oh yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, if it was like a Mr. Beast thing,
yeah.
Mr. Beast or serial killer, they're like, eat this human flesh for $1 million. Yeah.
Do you like this Tesla? You have to eat Chandler's leg or whatever one of his friends' name is.
Oh my god, I could totally see it too. Mr. Beast just went evil, and he was just like, the first person to eat this entire human leg gets $1 million. Right. Runner-up gets $500,000.
I'm waiting for him and Elon to team up, and they just decide, like, we're gonna do some evil things now.
Oh, 100%. Both of them have the manpower and the will. That they're just a little bit on edge. That's why if anybody was to like vlog me, I want it to be Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
I want it to be Mr. Beast. But on to another beast we're talking about, Ted Bundy. Mr. Theodore Robert Bundy.
Yep.
Because I realized he changed his last name, so it's no. Anyways, but my joke mostly had to do with like, oh, they call him Ted Bundy, is right, because he can bundle me up and strangle me anytime.
That one's a lot more casual than the big friendly giant. I was actually just talking to Bieber about that. I'm like, have you ever listened to the jokes that Holly says? And she's like, yeah, kind of. I'm like, that BFG one was fucking spicy.
That was a little bit spicy. That one was honestly my most iconic. For having just made it up before the podcast started, I was like, God, I'm fucking hilarious.
That one was iconic and will go down in history. And it's not only because of what you said, it's because of the fact that he did do those things, but with just like removed heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it like, I don't know if people really picked up on that side of it. Like it's...
Yeah. It's one of those jokes you have to know his crime.
Yeah.
The same with the Ted Bundy one, the one I let choke me, because that's what he would do with most of his victims, is he would choke them.
Yeah.
And then do all the fun stuff with the bodies. Yeah. Not fun stuff.
Oh,
Let me read. I guess if you're dead, it's you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah, Bundy is a... You know, it's weird talking about Bundy because I just think that he's so... I almost feel like a hipster some ways and not like in a good way. I'm like, we talk about Ted Bundy and I'm over here like, oh, everyone talks about Ted Bundy.
Oh,
but
everyone knows.
There's a reason why. Like, he was
iconic.
He made an impact, and in Utah specifically.
Yeah, which we live in, so that makes sense.
I'll give a personal story a little bit later on. Well, I don't want to say personal, but it's personal because it was a family friend.
Yeah.
Who actually... Yeah, we'll get into it later, but...
Yes.
I didn't do any research on his childhood besides the fact, like, some of his high school stuff, so I'm really curious, did he have a pretty piss-poor raising, or was he...
It probably... We always talk about the turning point. I think his turning point was already predestined, because I think if you kind of realized... I looked up more about, like, his high school, like what you were saying. I think it has to do a little bit with just his brain wiring. I think he just kind of was born... I think he was born evil. Yeah. But before we get into that idea, Ted Bundy was born as Theodore Robert Cowell on November 24th, 1948. Is that a Scorpio? Scorpios. To Eleanor Louise Cowell, also known as Louise Elizabeth Lunn, Home for Unwed Mothers. To this day, we actually do not know who Ted, but he's a Sagittarius? I don't even know what that means.
I don't know either. I don't know.
I only know Scorpios because I'm dating a Scorpio.
I don't know any of that stuff.
I don't either. I only pay attention to my friends and my significant others.
Yep.
The sign, so I'm like, are we compatible? Actually, we are. But,
Shouts out.
Shouts out, my mans. But he was born in Home for the for Unwed Mothers. They don't know who his dad is. There's a few different theories. One was that he was an army vet who was just kind of like a money man. Like, he just made a lot of money in the army and is just kind of not a good dude. Some theories actually say it's his grandfather, Ooh. Samuel. Some people think that maybe it was like that, but there's no like DNA evidence to prove that suspicion. But his grandfather was actually very abusive and a little bit crazy. So I mean, if his grandpa had antisocial personality disorder, I don't know if it skips a generation. I'm not really sure how those kind of genetics work. But I mean, if it was his father, and then that's what Ted Bundy has, right? It would make sense.
I did do a little bit of research later on in his life when he moved back to Philadelphia for a 2-year gap, which actually ended up being a really pivotal point in Ted Bundy's psychological break, I guess you could call it. They did mention that he found his birthing parents, or he did the research and found them. But that's all that I could find. I couldn't find who they were, what it was, but he ended up finding it, and I guess it fucked with him quite a bit.
Well, that's the story of it is, so he doesn't know because his father was listed unknown, and Louise claims she was seduced by the veteran Jack Worthington, and then the county put him as maybe a possible father. Mm-hmm. But for the first 3 years of his life, he lived at home with his paternal grandparents, who claimed him as their son. Gotcha. That's what fucked him up, and that's what I think part of the turning point was. Is during that time period, and this, what was it, just during anything before the 80s, having a baby out of wedlock was very frowned upon.
Bastard.
He was a bastard. It's okay, I'm a bastard, so we understand. I did not want to know I had something that I could relate to with Ted Bundy, but at least I know
of Jon Snows.
Oh, god damn. But, so he was raised by his grandpa and grandma, Samuel and Eleanor, who he describes as his grandma as like a very timid woman who actually underwent electroconvulsion therapy for depression because she feared to leave her house, especially towards the end of her life, and just kind of had just episodes of depression and things like that. His grandfather was kind of a crazy man. He had anger issues. He would kind of bully people. Mostly he was very bigoted. He hated blacks, Italians, Catholics, and Jewish people. Oh. So the trifecta. Yeah. So he just kind of hated anyone that wasn't him.
You know what's a weird thing to think about too about that? Yeah. So Bundy was born in 49, you said, right?
45.
45.
Wait, 46. Sorry.
46. So we can assume that his grandfather is probably older than 46. So he grew up pre-1900s.
Yeah, he was born in 1898.
Is that a weird thing to try and wrap like the head around? Yeah. Like that's not like Ted Bundy he's still alive, correct?
Ted Bundy?
Yeah.
No, he was put down.
Oh yeah, he was put down. If he didn't get put down, he would still be alive though.
Yeah, because he was put down. Yeah, he'd be in his 80s.
So to think that the person who raised him was born pre-1900s really kind of puts a weird perspective on how much of what kind of asshole his grandfather was.
Yeah, because he was born at the height of when the civil rights movements would start happening.
Well, and he would have been in his 20s trying to be an adult when the Great Depression hit.
Yeah. So, yeah, his grandpa and grandma went through a lot because she was born in 95. So just
1895?
1895. So 7 years after his grandfather.
That's crazy.
So both of them lived through the Great Depression, 2 wars.
2 wars.
And then now a bunch of and then after the fact. But his grandpa actually lived to be like almost, trying to do math real quick, 85, 90.
Wow.
His grandma, not as much. Wow. But he lived, I think also too, electroconvulsion therapy probably is not good for the longevity health. No. But
imagine not.
So his grandpa hated all ethnic people, essentially, and any other religion that's not... I don't know if he hated Italians and Catholics and Jews, what religion he would go by, if he even had a religion.
Christianity, probably.
Probably just a basic Christianity. Probably Baptist. That just sounds like something. But he was known to beat his wife and family dog and would sometimes swing neighborhood cats by their tails.
Oh.
So that's where the theory of, hi, Bert, maybe possibly his grandfather being his dad, it would make sense because, in a sense, a lot of the traits that Bundy had, his grandfather had, but also at the same time, he really respected and identified and clung to his grandfather. He really was like a daddy's boy because he thought that was his dad, and really liked him a lot. And then, so his grandparents raised him, family and friends. Even young Ted were told that his grandparents were his parents and that his mother was his older sister. And then he discovered the truth about his older sister that he thought was his older sister was actually his mom.
Right.
Which kind of, if you look at, I think, pictures of her and then pictures of his victims, there's a correlation. Also with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
His ex-girlfriend, I guess I should say. But yeah, so he loved his grandparents, but eventually he actually was then raised by his mom in the 1950s. She then changed her surname to Nelson for some reason. For some reason, her multiple family members was like, you should do that. But she then left Philadelphia, and then they moved to Tacoma, Washington. That's where she then met Johnny Culpepper Bundy, a hospital cook at an adult single night at a First Methodist church. And then they married later, where then that guy adopted Ted Bundy, and that's where Bundy gets his last name, because he's first born in as Caldwell. But then his mom remarried, and like I guess his stepdad actually adopted him.
I guess that's hopefully positive.
Yeah, and they tried their best. They actually then had 4 other children.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, of their own. And then Johnny, his stepdad, really tried to include Bundy, but he wasn't having any of it. He just was like, no, he could play to his girlfriend that it wasn't his real father, and he didn't make much money. He was just being a narcissistic at that point, being like, you're not my real dad, and I don't know who he is. But if my mom's right and it's this money guy, she should have gone with him.
Right.
Kind of that idea. But I think this kind of shows Ted Bundy's antisocial personality disorder and just other mental issues, because, like you were talking about earlier, in high school, he was like, I had no friends, no one liked me, I wasn't a popular guy,
right?
No, I didn't fit in. But then everyone at their high school was like, no, I mean, like, he was there and he was inclusive, like, no one disliked him, but no one also, like, he wasn't the star athlete, but he wasn't anything
I wonder
to not
if,
love.
Because he had the antisocial personality disorder, that since he wasn't the star of the whole entire school, he looked at that as like, I'm being ostracized.
Yeah, I could see that too. Another thing he did when he was in high school is he would roam the neighborhood, digging through trash cans looking for naked pictures of women.
Well, you know.
And he also would look up true crime novels, magazines, documentaries. 'Cause I forget that they had like the police magazines that would show you the crimes and how to get away from certain things. But he would always try to look for ones where, what is it? Where he would always try to find the ones where women are unharmed. Or he would always try to find pictures of dead or mangled bodies. And then he never ever read fact detective novels and shuddered at the thought of it, that anyone would.
I think it's interesting too to think that, I don't know, we've done so many different people now. It's so weird to see a lot of similarities as far as like either evolving sexually at a young age, or when they do start getting into the realm of trying to figure out like what like my young man brain thinks is attractive or whatever it is, like they all end up finding this weird fucked up thing early. Yeah. You know, because like if like you were young and you found like these weird crime papers, but it had like women in it, either they're naked bodies but they're dead or whatever, like, and then you started like, oh, that's a naked woman, and then you know, do your thing, do the deed, and now that becomes that becomes like an attraction. So I wonder if that's like super, I mean, that's kind of been a trend with a lot of these guys, is having some weird early perversion that's not going to be like beneficial, because you know, in our day and age, right, like you guys talked about it on your guys' show, the Holly and Cass Mess Around, shouts out, you know, and I brought it up that my generation of men and younger are actually starting to struggle really hard with like ED and different things like that, because porn is so readily available. And when you're in a situation where it's not like what you've been watching, and it's not either as hardcore or like as make believe, or because like very rarely are you gonna have sex that looks like sex in porn. That's just not how it works. It's just not how it works. So like if you can't disassociate that to your reality, you start having lots of problems physically. And I just wonder if this is the same thing that happened to some of these serial killers, but in a way, way more drastic version. Yeah,
and I think with Bundy, I don't know, like, he just, like, sought out dead women in those magazines. I don't know how old he was. I mean, any age before, because your brain's not fully developed until, what, 25 now? Yeah. So, anytime before that, it probably makes sense. But, yeah, he was just basically, just doing little shits, like just teenage shit where he would try to, like, he got caught for like auto theft.
Yeah.
Suspicion of burglar, being a burglar.
That word's awful.
Burglary. And then he would just, just basically do a bunch of fuck shit.
Yeah.
So he seemed pretty normal, but he said, I don't know what made, but like he talks about in interviews how he chose to be alone and he just didn't know what made people want to be friends, and I didn't understand underlying social interactions. So I think a lot of like why he felt like he wasn't popular is because he didn't understand what it meant to be someone's friend.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that antisocial personality disorder comes in, is that like he doesn't understand. He's like, he's friends with these people, everyone likes him, but he just doesn't think that because he doesn't understand how this is friendship.
Right. Yeah, it
Which
just
is very,
doesn't click.
Very fascinating.
It really is, and that brings in the whole empathy thing too, because empathy is missing in a lot of persons with that disorder.
Yeah.
And so I guess we're shouting out all the shows tonight. If you guys are interested in this type of facet, I do a show called Daxcast, and actually I won't say anything specifically, but there's stuff that gets talked about and brought up about that show that's exactly in regards to that disorder. And there is definitely a problem of people thinking everyone who has that is going to be a serial killer, because there's a lot of people who do have it who are very high functioning, intelligent persons. But it is interesting to bounce questions off someone who might have that and try and pick the brain because they don't have the empathy. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. It really is. And I think not having empathy, or at least understanding like why it's there, really could confuse you as a young adult if you don't have someone there to try and guide you
and be like, this is why, this is the reasoning.
And I mean, back then, how many people even knew of this disorder? Nobody.
And psychology was still let's lobotomize you if you're lesbian. That was still the culture,
Yeah.
Shouts out Nurse Ratched if you haven't seen it. 10 out of 10.
I don't know that one.
It's by the same people who did American Horror Story. It feels like another season of American Horror Story, but it's really good.
No,
Nurse Ratched. I think it's just called Ratched. But anyways, more on to his young adult. Well, that was his young adult life. What is it about his adult life? Man traveled.
The man traveled.
Traveled.
The interesting thing about this and why I'm so fascinated with all these connector things is Ted Bundy, like everyone else, pretty fucking successful.
Yeah.
Like, now there is something that maybe didn't do enough research or whatever, but he was not a full-blown lawyer. He went to school.
He was getting there, but got caught before he could fully finish.
And he very intelligent. So I'll kind of go over the stuff that I found that I thought was interesting. He spent a year at the University of Puget Sound, which is a very prestigious school. You don't just get into that. Mm-hmm. As well as he attended the University of Washington to study Chinese, which I never knew. I didn't know that he originally went to school to study Chinese.
That sounds familiar, but like I wouldn't have remembered that without you reminding me.
I think that's just a weird fact in my head. Like I wish there was more information on why he was interested in Chinese, because you don't hear that a lot. Like, why did he want to move to China? Mm-hmm. Maybe in his weird head, like if he did all these crimes, eventually he could go to China. I don't know. Now, when he was at the University of Washington, he actually met what he quoted the girl of his dreams, Stephanie Brooks, who is a big player in everything that is Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
He described their love as an intense, like, passion, and he even left University of Washington to go to San Francisco because she graduated, found a job, wanted to move, and he's like, I'll follow you. Like, I'll go with you. He wanted to work that bad.
Simp.
Fucking straight simping. Now, I want to put this in perspective of how intelligent Bundy is, because I know people talk about it. He got a scholarship on the fly to go study Chinese at Stanford. Like, you don't just
get a full ride scholarship to Stanford. Overnight, but this man does.
Yeah, he did. And I don't know if that's like because he already had one. I don't know how any of that works, but the fact that he's already got 3 prestigious schools under his belt that he is attending, and he was very successful at those schools when he wasn't getting involved in some fucked up shit.
Right.
So, I mean, really goes to show that he was a brilliant mind. It's sad that that mind just happened to be corrupt. Now, where things kind of took a turn was Bundy wanted this relationship to really last and wanted it to be like, this is the girl of his dreams. Well, Brooks didn't really see it that way.
Yeah.
And when he moved down there, she pretty much cut ties, saying like, hey, like, for one reason or the other, he felt like maybe she was lying, or he was lying, or doing some shit behind her back, blah, 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 blah. Typical early age, like, dating problems.
Yeah.
She was like, no, you should probably go back to the University of Washington. This isn't going to work.
Sorry you moved all the way here.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry you simped so hard.
Yeah.
Now, psychologists do claim that this break was a very pivotal moment in Bundy's, like, psychological development, because it seemed like now, as we progress into the story of Bundy, a lot of his victims do kind of have, like,
similarities to his ex-girlfriend.
Yes.
Who kind of looks like his mom.
Yeah.
Man got mommy issues.
Yeah, mommy issues. Now, of course, Bundy has talked about stuff like this. He said that after this, he was devastated. And I personally find this to be really interesting. So when he went back to the University of Washington, but he switched his focus.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm thinking too hard on this, but kind of like our Golden State Killer who was studying criminal justice and stuff like this. He went and studied sociology and urban planning. Now, maybe I'm just thinking too much into this.
Yeah.
Or do you think that maybe he wanted to try and get his way into being able to speak with people on a sociology level, as well as, like, urban development, knowing how to, like, plan out ways to escape? Or because, like, the man escaped from what? 2 prisons? 2 jails?
I know one for sure.
One for sure.
And then I think he.
But anyways,
no,
like,
anyways, I know for sure he escaped from one.
Yeah. So
but
did that have anything to do with the studies he did with urban development, or am I thinking of, like, urban development like he was actually studying the idea of, like, taking land and developing it? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but the sociology would make sense because since he doesn't understand humans in general,
yeah,
maybe he was trying to figure it out, and then he was like, I don't know who I am.
Right.
Killer.
Yeah. Now, he did end up dropping out due to poor grades, but he does return later in his life and finish it up. Side thing, he worked as a bodyguard for some time in between dropping out of University of Washington and then moving to Philadelphia. And I thought that was just kind of interesting, like,
yeah,
to go, like, because when I think bodyguard, I think someone who's very capable of, like, handling themselves, right? Like, physically, like, maybe know how to fight or, like, have martial arts training, weapon training. So I wonder if he got all of that taught to him while doing this bodyguard work. And it's for politicians, so, and later his political stuff becomes really important too. Like, he worked in that field a lot, but not a lot of people talk about him being a bodyguard. I don't know. It wasn't for a long time. It was maybe for like a year or something like that, but still very interesting. And then he moved to Philadelphia. Now, to harken back to why I think he's probably the most intelligent serial killer we have, he decided to go to school at none other than Temple, which is another very prestigious school. Like, Temple's one that you don't just walk into and be like, hey, I'm here. So, I mean, they must have saw his transcripts, or he's really good at interviewing. I don't know. He seems pretty... this is the one that I didn't go back and try and watch any video footage because I was like, there's so much, I'm sure everyone already knows, but...
Right.
Now, when he was out in Philadelphia, a couple really key important things happened. He found his birth records and found his true parentage during this time period. Now, he claims that this was another very pivotal point and also could have led to a psychological break.
Yeah. Like, it was just the last straw. He was like, I can't do anything more.
Right. Because, I mean, I try to put myself in his shoes as far as, like, mentally how to handle that. If I grew up with what I thought were my parents or my grandparents, and then the whole time my older sister was my mom, that I could see how that could fuck somebody up.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be...
That's a heavy thing to do, because it's like almost like your whole ghost. His whole life is a lie, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of mentality. I could really see that, because it's like, you know, like you think one thing and then you find out a whole different story, and you're like, it's like even like high school drama, you know? Someone's telling you something and then you find out the truth and you're like, what the fuck?
Well, I think too, like the biggest thing, like if it was me, it's like, man, everyone that I loved lied to me.
Collectively, everyone would come together and be like, let's lie to this young boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could definitely see how that'd be like one of those, like, I don't deserve this, why did I deserve this type of moment, and could really fall down this like deep, dark pit of sorrow of like, woe is me, you know? Now, I'm not 100% sure on this. I did not do a lot of research on his specific killings. But they do claim that during this 2-year, 3-year stint that he was in Philadelphia, that's actually where he committed his first killings.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, because I'm on like 2 different websites. One says it happened in Washington.
Yeah.
And another one says it happened in Philadelphia. Well,
I think it's because there's so many that it's really hard to pinpoint. So many that
happened. But I do believe, someone even said his first one happened in actually New Jersey. Where it was his first kidnapping in New Jersey, where she got away. I mean, she was raped and tortured, but she got away. And then he killed someone else in Philadelphia. Yeah. Then when he moved back to Washington is when the massacre started. Yeah, so I think he like played around while he was out in Philadelphia. And then when he was like, let's settle ourselves.
Right.
That's when I think the true crimes started reoccurring, I guess you can say. I think it was testing in Philadelphia and that kind of East Coast. Was it East Coast?
Yeah. Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I always do north, south, east, never eat Santa's wife.
Yeah. I do never eat soggy waffles.
I did soggy waffles, but I did Santa's wife as a kid, and I was like, that's funny. And then I realized, I was like, that sounds like an innuendo.
Wait, never what?
Never eat Santa's wife.
Yeah, I like that too, yeah.
I don't know why I did it like that.
But she thick though. Now, I now that you say that, I actually think that you're right. Like maybe that Philadelphia was like an excuse. Maybe even when he was already up at the University of Washington before he left and was being a bodyguard, I wonder if maybe it started like brewing. He's
like, oh, this is how I could get away with stuff.
Yeah.
Like learning the ins and outs of secrecy and hiding, and
or maybe it's always been in his head like, I'm gonna murder people one day, and then going to Philly, finding out that everyone's been lying to him, like his family and stuff, and he's like, you know what, now would be the perfect time. Fuck it.
Yeah, like I think that's why I think it happened in Philadelphia. Like I agree with you, because it just makes the most sense, because it happened after the fact.
Yeah.
You know, it happened once he found out all the truth and all the bad shit. That's when kind of it correlates when the killings happened, where he was.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me. Like Women's Health magazine says it was, the first one was in Washington, but maybe he went to Washington, did it a few times, then went to Philadelphia. It's so hard because there's so many bodies, but there still possibly can be even more. Yeah. Like this is like, he's done more than Gacy. Yeah. Kind of like, we know for sure 30, but we don't fucking know if it's only 30. Yeah. It could be 40, 50. Because he refused to tell us.
Well, and to put it in perspective, I'll get to my family's story regarding Ted Bundy a little later on, but they never found the body of the girl who my family knew, like in Utah. Yeah, they never found her body. So how many bodies did they not find?
That's what I think about, because the girl from Utah, her body was never found, and then there's so many more that they never found, and he helped find some of them, but not all of them, because he was like, I'm good, I don't really have to. I'm dying anyways.
Yeah, I'm done.
So it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly, unless you did just mountains more of research, which even then you're still going to have different opinions and different thoughts.
And to be fair, I think that, it's tomato at this point, like,
it's done.
If it happened in Philly first, it happened in Philly first. If it happened in New Jersey or Washington. Like, it really doesn't matter, but the fact is that it probably happened in all of them.
Yeah, it happened everywhere. It happened everywhere. That's all that really matters. And
this is just one theory that some people claim that maybe Philly was like his stomping grounds for like trying to figure out how he was going to do this.
Yeah.
And then going back to Washington is when he decided to really open up the bag of tricks with being a serial killer, which leads into, so this is the fall of 1969. Bundy was back at University of Washington, and he met Elizabeth Colfer, I think is how you pronounce her last name.
Yeah.
Clover? Yeah. And she was a divorcee from our home state of Utah.
Yeah.
Shouts out. Which actually might tie into the reason why he wanted to come to Utah.
Because she had experience from someone from Utah.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. It's weird. I was doing research, and I thought at first that maybe like Bundy was like the type of guy that just was struggling with women.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of the opposite. The way that people portray him is he was kind of the ladies' man.
He was big man on campus everywhere he went. Yeah. And I think because it's weird because even she's like, I don't know why he chose me. I was a divorcee with a kid.
Yeah.
And he lived with them and was like a stepdad for years to that little girl.
Yeah.
And like to the point where even when he got captured the first time, or not the first time, or maybe he did get captured the first time, and he was out and he visited them, they were both like, we don't really think it's you still, though.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't believe it until the last time after he got officially caught and was sentenced.
Yeah, and one of our favorite conversations that we had, I don't remember if it was the last episode or the episode before, when we talked about, like, these serial killers are so fantastic at being a normal person that is it the fact that, is it multiple personalities where they just switch on and off? Or are they so mentally, like, they have such a mental capacity to have two fully structured characters in their head? One that's like father figure, like role model for the community, all this type of stuff. And then like on a dime can just be killing kids and burying them in the basement like Gacy. You know, it's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, and that's why sometimes I wish I kind of went into
criminal psychology.
Yeah, because that's what I was going when I first started school. That's what I was going to do, but then I was like, too much schooling.
Yeah.
Now I wish I did it, but this works. But yeah, no, like it's just so fascinating to think because I like to think that they are the same person. Yeah. They just are able to hide themselves that well. But at the same time, because we learned that with multiple personality disorders, when you go into a different form of yourself, you don't remember what happened in the previous form. Right,
so it would be difficult to...
Yeah. And multiple personality disorder isn't like split where it's a completely different person. To an extreme scale, it can be, but most of the time it's really not.
Yeah.
So it's more of like just a mindset. So I mean, I guess kind of, but long story short, I just think they're really that good of an actor.
Yeah.
I think because they are so charming, so persuasive, so... endearing, outgoing and enticing, personable. I think they just have that ability to switch it both.
Yeah, and that's another weird thing that all of them have, right? They all claim that they were ostracized in some sort of way, but they're all so good at being friends with people. Like Ed Gein was like hanging out with the police officers. He was like the friendly nuisance. You know, they would just be fucking chilling at the bar.
He was the BFG for them.
Yeah, and then. You know, you got Bundy, who was, big dick on campus, swinging it all around to all these women. Like, and I joke when I'm saying that, but like he was kind of a player and he was very attractive. So like,
people wanted to fuck.
Yeah, people wanted to fuck, and like, so that brings me to the funny thing that I was talking about earlier. A lot of women find Bundy to be super attractive, but then Zac Efron portrayed him, and we all know Zac, like he's fucking, he's god tier. But I remember when that came out and I was reading up on it and watched the movie on Twitter, and I thought this was hilarious. I think it was trending for a while, or it was a really popular tweet where it was, Bundy murder my pussy.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of impact that Ted Bundy has on our society even today. Like, he's dead. He's been dead way before Twitter, and there was still a hashtag about how attractive and smooth talking he was. That it was Bundy murdered my pussy. Like, that's hilarious, first of all, but...
Hilarious. Well, yeah, and that's why, we'll talk about the movie in a little bit, but yeah, he would, and also too, besides being big man on campus, he would actually perform almost like a act when he would murder these women, because he would do what Buffalo Bill did. He would have like a sling in his arm, be super dressed up, really nice looking, and be like, hey, can you help me move my tire? Or hey, can you lift this up for me? And that's when he would grab them and kill them, murder them, rape them, do all that jazzy jazz.
Yeah.
But that was his MO, is he would, if he wasn't able to like get girls on campus to go with him, because he would also have to make sure he can't just be like, he would have to be like, oh, come in my car, because he would hitchhike and pick up girls that are hitchhiking. And obviously a handsome man like that, you're like, hell yeah, if I got dicked down, it won't be the worst end of the day.
Right.
But now if I got choked out, strangled, died, and then got dicked down, that's a different story.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. No one wants that.
No one wants that.
There's a dick down that needs to be placed somewhere else in this situation that doesn't involve getting raped and dying.
Exactly. But, so that's what a lot of his MO was. He would pick up hitchhikers, he would
go to high schools,
just pick up girls. He picked up a lot of 18-year-olds. I was looking at the age list, and most of them were all like 18 to 24. I think the oldest was 24.
Yeah. He
really picked the young ones, which is very uncomfortable. But yeah, a lot of 18. The youngest was 16.
Now, so I'll get into what I'm talking about with my personal, I keep saying personal, but family story regarding him. So in the 70s, Bundy went back to, sorry, hold on. I missed a part of this that was fairly important because I got sidetracked by the funny hashtag. So he met Elizabeth from Utah, and then when he came back, into the 70s, he was back at University of Washington, and he changed his focus again, and I think this is just hilarious.
Yeah.
For you audience listeners, what do you think Ted Bundy went and studied again, or now started studying in the 70s? Psychology.
Weird.
Right. Weird. Just weird how that is. Now, I really think, like, reading more about Bundy's adult life before or like during serial killings, because like when you research stuff in true crime, usually you find a lot of information on the actual crimes. Right. But finding stuff about Bundy as a person is interesting. And he seems like a fucking character in a book.
Yeah, no, he was.
Like some of the shit that he did.
The things that he did, the way he just came into this woman and her daughter's life and was like a dad figure.
Yeah.
They have home videos of them just going to the beach, riding horses, reading to her.
Well, now let's get into the professional side of it.
Yeah.
He worked at a suicide hotline.
Ironic.
Right. And he was able, and I should have written down the book, but one of the lady that worked next to him wrote a book, as you should, about working with Bundy like on a day-to-day basis, and she said that he seemed very empathetic and very like level-headed, amazing guy.
Yeah, I mean, you work at a suicide hotline,
and he is straight up fucking gutting people.
And
now this is where it also gets kind of weird. While he was working in the suicide hotline, he was a double agent on a political campaign.
Of course he was.
Now, I wrote, when I was doing my research, I said, this shit is like an evil James Bond movie. Like, he legit seems like James Bond, but just like the worst version of him. Yeah. Like, and his political stuff is interesting. Like, he was heavily involved in multiple movements and also helping certain people get reelected. And I don't know if it was like for any particular reason. I couldn't find out like what drove him to be so invested in politics. I don't know if it was just another thing to cover up his, his secret life. But a lot like Gacy was involved in the politics as well.
Yeah, he ran campaigns for mayors.
Yeah, and so did Gacy. So did Bundy.
That makes sense.
And so I don't know. I just find it so interesting that I wonder why they choose politics. Maybe because back then you would think like, no politician would do wrong, right? Because a lot of people in the 70s were brainwashed that politicians were up here.
Yeah, keep talking, Cass is here.
Okay.
Or do you want to let her in, or
you can grab her if you want. Yeah.
So politicians never trust a hoe.
Yeah, never trust a hoe. I'll keep going while she's grabbing the other co-host of Holly and Cass Mess Around. Shouts out. Now, his work in politics did end up leading him to continue his education, where he went back to the University of Puget. I don't know how to say that word. Puget Sound Law School. Now, I think a lot of people do get lost in thinking that Ted Bundy was a lawyer. He was not a lawyer. He did go to law school. He did not finish law school, which I think is important, that we should not credit him as being a lawyer, because I don't know. Real lawyers do a lot of work to become that, so I don't think that he should also have that title. Now, through his work in politics, he did end up reconnecting with Stephanie Brooks, who we talked about earlier was his first love of his life type of situation, and which I thought was super interesting. Oh shit, what up, G?
My eyes too fit in.
We got a surprise guest.
Surprise guest.
Is this seat for me?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Sorry, I'm just getting resituated. What part we got?
We talking about Bundy.
Bundy.
So during his work in politics and doing these weird political campaigns, he actually met back up with Stephanie Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I thought this was really interesting. She claimed that it was a budding romance. He would even introduce her as his fiance, like doing all these really cute things.
Yeah.
And then he just cut ties completely. He was like, nope.
He just ghosted her?
Ghosted her. And she like...
Asshole.
She sent like letters, all sorts of things, phone calls, like probably even said like sent messages by pigeon. I don't know what you do in the 70s. And he completely ignored her. And she finally got in contact with him. And let me see if I can find the quote again. She asked him why he dropped off the face of the earth. His response was, "I have no idea what you mean." So she wrote a statement basically saying, I think that he was intentionally doing this to get back at me for what I did to him previously.
Yeah, because a lot of people speculated that she was the turning point for him, on top of, because it was, one, he got denied a girl, move all the way to California from Washington to be with her, for her to be like, no. You're weird.
Actually,
Thank
JK.
you. So he moved to Philadelphia, found out about his heritage, and that's when the first starting killings happened.
Right.
So it's kind of like just a continuation. So that's why a lot of people blamed her, or said like she was kind of the reason for it, because he was the one. Because if you look at pictures of her and all of his victims, eerie similar. All brown hair, brown eyed, long, pretty, a lot like his mommy.
Yeah. How much would that suck to be the girl known as like the breaking point for a murderer?
Right.
To like kind of be the one to make a murder. That would really suck.
Yeah. So I know, because like before like the new Zac Efron movie came out, like Ted Bundy kind of almost revived as being like an icon. I already knew, like, I was like, oh, that bitch. I didn't even know her name. I was just like, there was
That's the one.
I was like, there was one heartbreaker out there that started it all.
I feel so bad for Elizabeth, though. As most people who know the story do, because he really did step up and was, like, treating her kid like his own.
Like his stepdad, yeah.
And, like, doing all these things. And then to have that pop up, like, oh, yeah, I gotta go to court, honey. Like,
yeah.
She's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because like, when he went to then Utah to study being attorney. But, she had articles and people being like, that kind of looks like Ted. And she's like, I mean, like, I don't like to think so. But she actually gave the police being like, hey, like, I think it might be this guy named Ted Bundy. But she was anonymous. So they couldn't follow up with her because she didn't want to admit it. But she was also like, this is a little too eerie. But I don't want to admit that I let a murderer father my daughter for many years.
Yeah. Well, on top of it, that's when we start getting into some notorious stuff like the Volkswagen and you know. So I don't know the timeline. This is where I kind of stopped my research because it kind of got into the more mainstream stuff of what everyone already knows. But he ended up leaving University of Washington, and he made his rounds across several different states. As we said earlier, the man traveled.
Yeah.
Utah being one of those stops.
Yeah. It was Utah, Colorado, Idaho, and then when he got caught in Utah and was captured, he escaped jail, went to fucking Florida.
Which is fucking crazy. He just
He
Later.
was like, later.
I know.
Because when they caught him the first time, they only had him for attempted kidnapping.
Yeah.
They only had him for attempted kidnapping. No murders, no nothing. Just assault and kidnapping. So if he would have just done his sentence, he would have been a free man again and could have done more.
Right.
That's my fucked up brain that I'm like, you didn't do it smart. You could have done so much
Could've
more.
done better.
But
Like Gacy, he went to court for everything when he got those first charges.
yeah,
And then the record keeping sucked so bad
back then
that they were
Yeah.
like, oh no, he must be a good guy. We can't find any records on him. Even though there was records sitting there of him molesting fucking kids and shit.
Yeah, 2 towns over.
Yeah, two towns
I guess
over.
it'd be 2 counties over technically.
Yeah,
They're
but that's
I
like...
don't see nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Blinders on.
Oh my god.
I won't check
I don't know how to read.
Blocking out all the haters.
I guess I won't do my full duty and research.
Is county... Okay, so if we put that in where we live, county, that'd be like if someone in...
It's like in Utah
Like
County, you do a crime, you have to go to Utah County,
Yeah.
county, jail and
So what would be
trial.
2 counties over from us?
That'd be
What?
like Wasatch
Because
or
we're
something.
yeah,
Wasatch?
whatever is
Yeah,
after
yeah, yeah.
Davis, because it's Utah County, Davis County, and then Wasatch.
Salt Lake and then Wasatch.
I thought
Or
Utah
Wasatch.
County was...
I don't
Utah
know
County
anything
South.
about you.
Anyways,
Well,
it's
that's what I
like-
was trying to say. Utah County, then Salt Lake County, then so I guess
Yeah.
from Utah County it'd be Davis County, 2 towns over.
Right.
But
So I want to tell the story of my family's interactions with
Mr. Bundy.
with Bundy in a weird way. So
Oh.
my grandmother, bless her soul, R.I.P.
Shouts out.
I guess great grandmother, sorry, but
Shouts out,
regardless, she lived up on Mill Creek Way,
Okay.
which is so. For those of you who know Utah, this will make sense, but if not,
Look it up.
you can look up Bountiful, Utah, which is actually where we're from. Funny enough, and there's a
Or are we?
yeah, or are we?
Okay, you'll never know.
There's a street called Orchard Drive, which is pretty well known around here.
Mm-hmm.
And then off of Orchard Drive is Mill Creek Way. So my grandma lived, how it's kind of laid out is like a circle, and in this, like a full circle that you can drive through with outlets.
Mhm.
And then she lived on one side, and then the Kent family lived diagonally in the back of them.
Mm.
Okay. Now my great grandma was really good friends with the daughter's mother who got kidnapped or taken from Ted Bundy.
Oh.
So growing up, now I wish that I would have been a little bit older to have these conversations with my great grandma because I just didn't know.
Yeah.
But I guess the story goes that she was picked up by Bundy very close to their house, and then they never found her body. Ever. She's one of the ones here in Utah that they still don't know
No, they
where
still
her body
don't know where
is.
she is. Because, I mean, he dumped them all up in, like, the
Yeah.
mountains and everything. They're like, there's so much.
One theory
area.
is that she might be the one that's buried under the Viewmont house.
Oh.
Yeah.
But that could just be like theory from people around here. The
Like
crazy thing is
legends.
though, is I remember growing up and like my uncles and whatnot, they would like crack jokes about like, make sure you close your blinds because if you're changing, Bundy might be watching you.
Yeah.
And like, this was well past Bundy was already caught and whatever.
Yeah.
But those jokes, now that I sit back and think on it, like they were actually worried that Bundy might be walking around, creeping around their fucking bushes because he potentially was creeping around their bushes in the backyard,
Yeah.
watching this 18-year-old girl and following around.
Yeah. Because to put in perspective how close he was to Bountiful, he went to the University of Utah, which is in Salt Lake, which is a 20-minute drive from
Yeah.
Bountiful.
Literally.
Because Salt Lake and Bountiful are like basically almost neighbors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You literally just have to go on the freeway for 5 minutes and then
Yeah.
you're here. So he was that close because there was he would also go in Holiday. That was where his youngest victim was in Holiday.
Mm.
But yeah, he traveled a lot of places. One girl's body was found in the Provo Canyon.
There-
A lot of people were most of them he hid in the mountains, which obviously if you know Utah, there's lots of
Oh yeah,
beautiful
you could hide
mountains.
it,
Literally.
and not to
You
sound
just-
dark, but you could hide a body in the mountains and no one would ever find it.
Yeah.
No, you
It's
could try.
vast.
Yeah, I mean Elizabeth Smart was hidden in the mountains for months.
Oh yeah.
Right by people.
Just right by. It was just in such a weird, hard place to hike up that no one hiked it.
Yeah.
But if someone would just have,
they
would have
found
found
it.
it. Well, and also
And people got close. But...
People got close. One person actually got really close, and then this was just like, it's an abandoned campsite. I don't think I'm comfortable left.
It's abandoned. I gotta go.
There was another story that I don't know how true it is, but I guess another family friend said that they actually got in Bundy's Volkswagen with him. And it was like that road, you know where that road is where the little stream goes down, like right by Bountiful Heights here, and then there's that little stream?
Yeah.
She had gotten out of school and was walking up, and Bundy's little Volkswagen was there, and he was like catcalling her or whatever. And she's like, oh, this is a handsome guy. Like walks over, like kind of leans in the car, and he, whatever, the smooth talked his way into her getting in the car. Mm-hmm. And when she got in the car, he flipped the switch and it locked the door, and there was no handle. But I guess he didn't end up like doing anything to her. Like they drove around for a little while. Yeah. But he dropped her back off. So I just wonder like what that situation really was. I wish that I could figure out who this person's story was, or if it was just one of those things like Bundy was the hot topic, so people made up stories.
Well, like, I must have had some experience with him.
One of my favorite memes of all time. It's like people from Utah. I know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody that knew Ted Bundy. Yeah, that's because didn't you have a story of?
Some lady, and it was like when my parents were trying to force me to go to church and everything, and the lady was like trying to use it as like a way to be like the spirit told her. Oh yeah. And so apparently it was like her aunt, I think it was her aunt who went to the U with Ted Bundy. Mm-hmm. They didn't have any similar classes, but they would see each other in passing a lot. Mm. And then he asked her out on a date and was like, hey, do you want to go out? And she was like, because he was like super cute, but she's like, but then I got a feeling, and was like, no, I should not. And then was like, sorry, I gotta study. And he's like, oh, okay, understandable. And apparently that same night was one of the nights that he went and like killed someone.
That's the testament right there.
And I'm like, Holy Ghost.
And sorry for those of you watching, we didn't introduce you.
Oh, this is Cassidy.
Yeah.
Ha-cha-cha.
The other half of Holly and Cass messed around in 1/5 of Read Between the Lines.
Yeah.
Fourth?
1/4. Wait.
1/5.
1, 2, 3, 4,
1/5.
5.
Yeah, 1/5.
1/5.
This is the shouts out episode.
Shouts out.
But yeah, so I think that's my favorite meme.
Yeah.
Is that somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. See, the thing is, none of my family. Sorry. I didn't have. I was actually gonna move that out so that I could have opened it, not right between your legs. Not gonna lie, I was gonna open it, but I didn't want to like awkwardly be between your legs, so I was gonna like move it out.
You can be between my legs, let it
Oh yeah! Subscribe to our Patreon.
Think those lines could get someone in my Volkswagen?
Oh fuck!
Milady?
Thank you.
I didn't shake it.
Like I said, I wish that I would have talked to my great grandma more about this, because she passed away like 2007 or 8, so it's like I was old enough to like talk to her about it. But she used to. Her big thing was she would just sit at home and call people. Yeah. And the Kent mother was one on her list that she would talk to on like a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So it would have been interesting to been able to like actually hear stories of what it was like to like be alive and understand that. And sadly, my other grandma, who was going to come do the podcast, she was a big fan. I always tell stories that she would talk about the podcast but only talk about Forrest. I'm like, thanks, Grandma. I'm also there. She like every time I saw her, the conversation would start like, God, Forrest cracked me up last week, and it's like tells the whole story. And I'm like, thanks, Grandma. I'm there too.
I'm there too.
I'm related to you.
Yeah. I'm there too. Thanks.
Next thing you know, Forrest and your grandma have a love relationship.
You know what?
I'd be okay with
that. As long as Forrest finds happiness, that's all that really matters.
But yeah,
that's all we're looking for.
I was thinking, so yeah, kind of like, basically, well, you know his story from there. He was captured in Utah, escaped, then went to Florida, went down sorority road, raped a bunch of women, fucked some shit up, got caught, and then they figure out who he was, and then didn't they take him back to
Beaver saying Holly and Cass mess around starting early tonight.
Exactly.
And thank you for the follows, guys.
Thank you. But yeah, so it's basically self-explanatory. He was then sentenced to death and got he died electrocuted.
Someone clip that in slow-mo.
Oh my god, last night we were decorating because one of our co-hosts tonight will not be here because she's going to a Christmas party for her work. And one of their things they're doing is whoever can deck out their car the best in a Christmas way wins a prize.
Oh, that's sick.
And it's like cash. They took out like fucking $50,000.
Maybe not the whole $50,000 because I think all of that goes to bonuses for everybody, Christmas bonuses. But it should be a good prize. Anyways, so we were helping our co-host Bella do her car, and I was in charge of the gumdrops, and I was going to add like glitter, but I couldn't get the glitter to come out, and then I was like, oh, it's still closed, like I have to open it fully so I can get it out. And then Cass was like, oh, what if it exploded in your face? And I was like, come shot.
she's like
Oh,
and it's like red glitter glue, like
Santa came early, if you know what I mean.
Santa's a little premature on that one.
It was so I died. I died that night.
I was really on one last night. I was just like nailing it.
Going in.
You seen the new fucking, you might be depressed, but you know what helps? Just a quick little dice walk.
I was like, I've been doing that too much, just in my daily aspects. I'll just kind of be like, I'll do my makeup and be like,
yeah.
Wow, looking good.
I've been doing so many more like TikTok things where I'll like literally be in bed and I'll be like, eh.
Yeah.
And then I'll stop and I'm like, what was that? No one's here.
It's a problem. I invest too much time in TikTok now, and
my
like
mannerisms are changing.
Fuck.
But we should end the podcast with talking about, what is it? Extremely Wicked and what is it?
An Incredibly Vile. Extremely Wicked and Incredibly Vile, right?
The Zac
movie?
Efron
Yeah.
movie with Lily Collins. Not a lot of people talk about that home slice, that nice coochie lady. That was actually one of my first crushes, was Lily Collins.
And she's fucking lit.
Yeah.
Second to Sandra Bullock and Reese Witherspoon.
Woo! I love Lily Blas. I love Lily Blas.
Shouts out to my Facebook who let me have one 11 years ago.
Yeah, okay, are you against me making that a t-shirt?
Oh
or it's
my
just
God,
the Facebook post?
I would genuinely
I
fucking
have
love that. I love Lily Blas.
I had so many good ones. We have to do one for the Halloween one that's like didn't get invited to a birthday
party. I was a Halloween witch, so what?
Really sucks like that.
Really sucks like that.
We'll call it just the Holly line. It'll just be all your fucking shirts.
Dude, I had one like a couple days ago. The status is gone. I have no idea what I posted, but the comment stayed. And it was my grandpa commenting, like Santa and God.
And God.
And I'm like, I don't even know what that post was. There's no, and that one was like 4 years ago. So I'm like, where was
What
it?
the fuck?
But my rating of that movie, I was hyped. I thought about it for months. I counted down the days.
Yeah.
The girls and I, we got together, made a girls' night wrapped around it. I would rate it a 6.
Yeah.
Only
I'd say a solid 6.
because I thought, because they didn't really tell you what it was about. I didn't realize it was about her book.
Yeah.
The girl with the kid.
Yeah.
Elizabeth's book, where it was just like what it was like to live with Bundy in the trial. I thought it was Ted Bundy's kind of like life, just like a little bit, and like mostly focused on the trial towards the end. Like half of it was like his life, what he did, his experiences, and then the trial. Because no offense, I really wanted to watch Zac Efron fuck some bitches up.
Yeah.
I wanted to see Zac Efron as a murderer so bad.
I agree with you. I went into that expecting it to be a whole different movie.
I thought it was going to be a horror movie.
And they fucked up in their presentation of like the commercials and stuff.
Yeah, that's what they gave it as. They were like, oh, you're going to see Zac Efron as Ted Bundy.
It was closer to like a documentary type style, and it was.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was just kind of boring.
Yeah, no, exactly. Which is like really sad, especially because they like hyped it up as if it was gonna be like some like psychological thriller and like all these things would happen. But half of it was just him being like, I will learn law.
Yeah.
I did not kill these women. I love you.
I escaped myself.
I practice jumping.
I fucked a girl in prison. Now Ted Bundy has a daughter. It's crazy to think that like so many serial killers have kids. Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. Did Golden State?
Golden State had a daughter.
Almost all of them. Mary Bell ended up having kids.
Mary Bell.
She's a different one. I don't consider her a serial killer.
No, because she had circumstance.
I would have fucking probably murdered people too if I was in that circumstance.
You should watch Mary Bell. That's the only one that my coworker has seen, and I hope he does not watch the Ed Kemper one.
Oh, why? You make the skull fuck
Why? That's quality.
No, because the thing
fucking mint.
No,
we're bringing it back.
Is we ain't homies like that, and he's gonna rat me out at work, and everyone's gonna know that I let Ed Kemper fuck my skull.
Well, you know. It's crazy. Like I've listened to it on the podcast. I was here live when you told me it before the show, and I was there when you told me, and it still hits real hard.
Yeah, each time you're like,
My favorite was my mans picked me up after that podcast, and I was like, have you heard all my great jokes? And I told him, and Allie and Cass are just hanging out in the living room, and I was telling, I think I was telling the John Wayne Gacy one.
Yeah.
And all I hear is Allie's cackle.
Oh my god.
And we were in the other room, and I was like, Allie, get this one, and then I told her the BFG. I can't even remember the acronym. I have it written down on my phone just so I don't forget the good notes.
Yeah.
But then I said that one, and it was.
Shouts out Allie for having a laugh that could cure cancer.
Dude, for fucking
it makes me
real,
so happy.
Though.
It's so great.
Good. It really cleanses the soul.
Yeah.
It just, you know what? It breaks down the door to your heart.
Yeah.
And then punches you with love.
Yeah. Like straight right in the heart.
Just right in there, and you're like, God, laugh again.
Yeah.
If I was to do stand-up, I want Allie there.
Oh, you'd be so
so
successful because your jokes could not land, but she's gonna laugh, and then everyone's just gonna be
everyone will be like,
yeah,
this is hilarious.
Just have Allie as like my groupie, but not like my groupie, but like my homies that just hangs around.
Wait, idea for you.
Yeah.
How big of balls do you think you can have one night? Like just huge? What if all of us grouped up and you only told your true crime jokes at a stand-up night?
Fucking God.
I would do it in a good way where I would talk about how I do a true crime podcast, and I would be like, let me give you a list of jokes, and then I would do other jokes, so that way it's not just in the true crime one.
I'll record it. That could be huge because all of us are gonna die every single time that you say something. But I just want to know what the other I hope we get a conservative night at the comedy store, so I get to look over and see all these white Mormon ladies be like, did she just say, what is even skull fuck?
What is a skull fuck?
And be like, then in the crowd be like, that's when he decapitates me and fucks my skull and pocket pussy.
Give him a lowdown. You want me to draw you a diagram?
Yeah. Well, because I feel like I would have to explain the murders because not everyone knows so much about true crime.
Yeah.
I think I forget that because sometimes I'll tell my mans, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this person. They're like, who? And I'm like, come on.
You should know this.
And then I have to explain who that person was, what they did, and why they did it.
Yeah.
So then I can explain the joke. I told I did tell my John Wayne Gacy joke to Bucky and my other coworkers. Yeah, I told them both because I was like, it was funny. Well, because he was listening to the Mary Bell, and he was like, oh my God, your Mary Bell joke was funny. And I was like, oh, do you want to hear my John Wayne Gacy one?
Which was the Mary Bell one?
Oh, it was two detectives are interviewing Mary Bell, and they're like, you're telling me that a 10-year-old killed these two little boys? And she's like, shut the fuck up, I'm 11.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 11.
And so I told him the John Wayne Gacy one, and Bucky was like, no.
No.
Because I was like, because I was talking to just my one coworker, and I was like, do you know John Wayne Gacy? And he was like, kind of. And I was like, it was the clown who killed little boys. Anyways, here's the joke.
Yeah.
I think is my all-time favorite.
Yeah, that's quality.
That's the thing, is that makes it so hard. My Ted Bundy one wasn't as good.
What was your Ted Bundy one?
It was, I was like, Ted Bundy because they call him Bundy because he can bundle me up and choke me out anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, you really set yourself a high bar with that first
I
one.
know! That one was my favorite.
I think
about
that game one, though, is, like, iconic.
It's iconic.
It's iconic.
Yeah.
See, the Gacy one you can tell at family events. The
Yeah,
Ed
yeah,
one,
yeah.
you can't really.
That's a close
that's
friend
like
joke.
You know, you say it when you all are hanging out, drinking a little,
Yeah.
and you're expecting someone to be like, excuse me?
Yeah. You
See-
dice roll in with Skullfoot.
Yeah. One school foot.
See how
What
I put it as well too. How I know that's not a good one to tell your mom. Like how I gauge it is would I tell it to Crystal?
Oh yeah. my mother.
Because
Your mother.
because the thing is, I would tell her the Mary Bell one.
Yeah.
I would tell her the Gacy one. I
Yeah.
probably even say like the Bundy one.
Yeah.
I would never say the Ed
No.
Kemper one to her face.
She'd be like,
She'd be like, yeah. See, because I know. See, the thing is, I know she would like the distastefulness because she expects it from me. Because she's like, I love you who you are.
I just thought when we were on the one podcast and you were talking about how maybe it was the Holly and Cass mess around where you're talking about how she made a list of terms that you needed to explain to her.
oh yeah, the
That's
list.
so wholesome.
Yeah. No, literally, it was like she's like, so what does cap mean?
Yeah.
And like I had to explain in detail and like explain just like all the rundown how she would use it in a sentence, like whole spelling bee sort of thing. And she's like, all right, no cap.
Exactly.
And I'm like, fuck yeah, Mom, love you.
Yeah.
She's probably going to watch this one because it has to do with Harry Potter, not but
perfect.
the next one. I told her about Harry Potter and she's like,
I'm excited
I'm gonna
because I
watch it.
have a lot to talk about because I think
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Harry Potter. So
we watched Harry Potter last night.
Oh, perfect. 'cause
Or
I-
well, we watched the 7th one though. So. I mean,
Oh,
Jenny
Jenny
like,
is so cute.
Let's kiss. Like, Jenny.
I would probably kiss Ron or Luna Lovegood.
Oh,
save this for the next
oh yeah,
podcast.
we have questions.
Talking about
Okay, perfect.
talking,
So let's close out here.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy. We're not going to get super into detail about all the killings because it is so mainstream. We kind of covered because we have a traditional layout of how we do this podcast. We kind of covered what his motivation is, what the turning points probably were.
I like to go over the child's gifts because I think that's always so fascinating.
Yeah.
No one talks about that.
No.
Except me.
And his trial's so public that...
You can just watch the movie. That's
Yeah.
actually a good way to understand the trial is just watch that movie.
Yeah.
You won't get what you want out of it.
No, you want the... It doesn't give you any dirt. It just gives you good details.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I don't want to admit how much I wanted to see Zac Efron fuck a bitch up, but
Yeah.
like,
No,
God,
literally.
that was the whole point of the movie.
Exactly.
He needs to grow up and finally show the world his wiener. Because everyone keeps asking.
Well,
I want to see the weenie.
the thing that made me mad is because he also, because I remember before that he was going on interviews being like, I just am so nervous because like I know how women perceive me and I don't want them to then idolize this man who they already did. But he was like, I didn't want to associate Ted Bundy and make him like an icon and hot, sexy, everyone wants to fuck. Too late.
Yeah, too late.
Yeah,
But-
everyone want to fuck them.
Everyone already did that. There's some fucking...
Have you seen Tumblr?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I talked about earlier.
Oh.
There was a trending thing
Yeah.
that said Bundy murdered my pussy
Yeah.
on Twitter for a while.
Literally.
But, so that's why I was like, oh, he's going to give us, like, the spice. Like, he's going to show us a dark side. And he kind of did, but not really.
The only time that I really, like, I think he played the role fine, but the only time that I actually saw him, like, really, like, was that last, like, 5 minutes when he's doing the face-to-face with Elizabeth. But I don't even think that actually happened in real life.
I don't...
Where he, like,
remember.
breathed on it or something and wrote something. I can't really remember. I
Oh,
watched the
yeah.
movie when it came out.
Yeah, I watched it once and never watched it again, which says a lot because I rewatch all movies.
Yeah, that's facts.
I'm like you. I
Yeah.
can't rewatch movies.
I can't. I don't understand because you're
Unless
like my
it's like a
mom, where you like
classic.
rewatch it.
I'll watch
Yeah.
Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, but
Yeah.
like that's because of the events,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
I will say though that Zac Efron needs to finally post the ween pic because like I already hate myself enough, so I
Yeah,
need
my
like
God,
I need
it up a
some
little.
sort of like win in my books. I need it to be really small.
Oh yeah.
If he has a monster hog, then it's just like, well, the
Yeah.
game's over.
Also, present
game's
the
over.
balls. I'm curious.
The what?
The balls!
balls.
If you're gonna do a dick pic, do the balls as well. I'm always curious.
I'm
about
imagining an
balls.
underside photo. Might as well get the ass.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we're going all out, it needs to be all three. It needs to be like from like
Panoramic view.
from face down chest.
And like, scrunches up, and it's like him. It's like his face, dick,
Oh
balls,
my god,
asshole.
that would be. Okay, so what's next for the true crime drunks? Should we? Originally, I know the plan was to do the cult that we were talking about. Do we just want to dive into
temples. Yes,
Ooh.
drink the purple Kool-Aid.
Okay, so People's Temple, 2 weeks from now. Christmas holidays might flip around schedules. I don't know. We'll talk about it.
I'm going to be leaving on the 20th, so if we did it on the 19th, I could.
Okay.
Because I'm leaving the 20th. I'll be gone a week. So probably the 19th will be the last one I can do until after New Year's. Because then right after that, because I'll be in Texas for a week.
Yeah.
Then I'll be going to the cabin, and then I'll be back.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
So-
we'll keep everyone informed with what date specifically, and we're doing the People's Temple, which is famous for drink the purple Kool-Aid, which you hear in all sorts of nowhere.
Even if you don't know the cult, you know purple Kool-Aid meat.
Yeah.
Which I think sounds delicious.
Now, for those of
I
you who
think
want to
sounds
still hang out with
delicious.
us tonight.
Yeah.
Now, for those of
I
you
think
who want to
sounds
still hang out with us
delicious.
tonight.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who want to
sounds
still hang out with us
delicious.
tonight. Now, for those of you who want to still hang out with us tonight.
Now, for
those of you, we're moving on. We're moving on. And that is over at Read Between the Wines. So twitch.tv/Read Between the Wines. We will be covering Harry Potter.
Harry Potter!
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter! Harry Potter! Harry Potter!
So we'll be up in about 10 to 15 minutes max.
Okay.
Max.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Remember, you can reach out to us on True Crime Drunks has Instagram now. We have our website.
We have an email.
Tell
me how much you hate the website. truecrimedrunks@gmail or truecrimedrunks.com.
And Instagram is up and running. Content will be daily starting on Monday.
If we can get to 1,000 followers by the end of the year, I'll present my own butthole.
Aha!
Which does have also infamous stories surrounding it. Go watch Read Between the Wines.
I thought you were going to say, go Wildcats.
Wildcats.
I was like, all right.
I'm still working on that shirt. The tiny butthole shirt. Because I think that's going to be a fucking
That'd be so
mint. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Farewell, I'll be the same.